Only those who have the greatest resources at the top of the income distribution with the most money can lifecraft, can actually take concrete steps to craft the life they want.
Hi, I'm Professor Leah Ruppanner. As a sociologist, I've made it my life's mission to take down every ridiculous gender myth out there. Like, do pretty people get paid more, or are women better multitaskers? This is MissPerceived.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to MissPerceived. On today's episode, I'm going to talk to you about this idea of life crafting. Have you heard of this concept? Do you life craft? It comes from this article by researchers out of UCL, Sarah Frampton, Sandy Gould, and Anna Cox. And basically, because I'm obsessed with the mental load, they start out this article talking about the mental load. It's talking about the ways in which we do the mental load, the ways in which we use technology to support the mental load. And at the end of the article, they introduce this idea of life crafting. And they basically say, our current definitions of the mental load don't capture this very specific thing that we do to create the lives that we want, to create the lives of our dreams. Now, for those of you who've read my book, which I know is all of you, because you will love it. It is the best book ever. Trained, reduce your mental load to do less and be more. In that book, I introduced these 8 different mental load types. One of them is this one called Medicare. It's like, what kind of world do we want to live in? And so when they talk about life crafting, I feel like our concepts are very similar. For them, life crafting is this idea of, here, I'll give you this quote. We broaden this to life crafting to capture relevance beyond parenting and to name the work of making explicit the why that underpins everyday decisions, articulating what matters, how trade-offs are judged, and what the household is aiming for over time. And they're basically talking about this idea of you use some of your mental load to create or think about or craft the life that you want. And that is a different and distinct mental load. I talk about Medicare, which is you are also thinking about the worlds you want to live in. Are you a good parent? Do you show up in ways that are kind? Are you worried about politics or the environment, and thinking about what is the world I want to live in? And how do I use my mental load to do that? So that's my Medicare, but their life crafting is a little bit more individual. It's why am I making the decisions I'm making to get to the goals I want to get to or to create the life I want to create? And if you've done my mental load audit, right, this is in part what I ask you to do, to get clear on your goals, to start to align your mental load in these strategic ways. So I found this to be quite an interesting concept of do you feel like you are in fact life crafting? Do you feel like you are doing this work of thinking about the life you want to make and the ways in which you're stepping forward and using your mental load or your energy to craft that life? Do you do this? One of the things I will say is that I think life crafting, I'm curious, this will be my argument, so tell me if you agree. I think life crafting has gotten harder over time. And I think almost it's an individualization that puts people at a disadvantage in terms of the structures we're currently living in. So let me give you an example. If I think about when would you be most likely to life craft? When are you really, really having the control or the power, or the autonomy to start to use all your energy to craft and create the life that you want? And I think that happens when you're younger. I think we encourage this life crafting at a younger age. We encourage our kids to do life crafting, right? We encourage them to start thinking about what kind of world do they want to live in? Who do they want to be? How do they want to move towards their careers? And we ask them basically from a younger age to start life crafting, to start thinking about how they want to move through the world. Now, the thing is that the world has become incredibly unstable. So this life crafting, I think for young people is going to be even harder now that the world is changing quickly and is so different. So I don't know if you saw, but there was these memes or I don't know what they're called, short videos that were going around where people were giving these commencement addresses to university students who were graduating. And they were basically saying to them, AI is here and you need to integrate into the world of AI. And the students in the audience were booing them, effusively. And the people who are leaders in the field, who are, professionals who I'm sure the university has paid thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to come and give the commencement address, were befuddled about why is it that these students are unhappy with this wisdom I am imparting down to them? And I think the challenge on that was that this idea, we've been sold this idea that we're supposed to life craft, but then you have all of these structural forces that come in that actually limit your ability to do that. So you're told You are responsible for it. You need to think about the why. You need to articulate what kind of life you're going to make. You need to figure out the trade-offs. You need to figure out where you're going over time. And yet, as you make these decisions, life crafting becomes harder because the institutions have changed, because inequality is higher, because inflation is there, because AI came in and actually now you can't even life craft because you don't know what's going to happen, what job's going to disappear, what skills you're going to need, the ways in which you are going to have no autonomy or limited autonomy to move through the world. Across a bunch of my research too, I heard quite clearly that mothers talked about that life crafting or that ability to, they were life crafting for the family and they weren't life crafting for themselves. They were life crafting for others. And men talked a lot about using that energy to try to create the world in which they wanted to live in. Now, I've said this to you before, but I guess I keep thinking about this idea of life crafting, that it actually is a powerful idea. This idea that we could use some of our mental load energy to create the life we want. And it's also a total bullshit idea, because how do you life craft when you have care systems that are broken, when you have a housing market that doesn't allow anybody in but the rich, you have aged care that is non-existent, and you're saddled between all of these opposing pressures to try to create the life you want when you can't do it? It feels indulgent. I'm curious what you think about this. I'm curious how you're perceiving of this. And I think this is where sociology is really a superpower, because what we often think about is like individual agency, like the extent to which you as an individual can do what you want to do, and the extent to which you bump into structures, either families, workplaces, governments, and then you actually hit those and it limits your ability to do what you want, to create opportunity, to create the life you want. And so where is this sitting for you? I will make the argument right now that life crafting is only possible for the rich, that only those who have the greatest resources at the top of the income distribution with the most money can life craft, can actually take concrete steps to craft the life they want. And I will say that the headwinds against those at different income distributions, those with less resources, is like life crafting is a myth. Is that too controversial? Is that like, I'm curious what you think about this. Is this too extreme? I only work in black and white, zeros and ones. I'm a quantitative sociologist, so I can only think in numbers of 0 and 1. I'm a little bit joking about that. And then is the question about like life crafting, is life crafting where we reclaim our power? Is it about how do we get crystal clear on what kind of lives we want to live and make sure that we're moving strategically towards them? Like, is this actually the moment? So is this a moment in which life crafting is reserved for those with the most, but we all have the power, the ability to step in and life craft on our own? I want to know what you think about this. Are you able to life craft? Do you see this happening? And what does it look like for you? In conclusion, the research on the mental load shows that there is this element that parents are spending their time on life crafting, how to create the world in which they want to live. I call it Medicare. They're similar but different. Medicare is like the world I want to live in. Life crafting is using my energy to create the life I want. I think what's going on is that we life craft for other people, that life crafting is probably gendered, that women are life crafting for others, and that they're not life crafting for themselves. I also think what's going on is that we encourage life crafting early in the life course so people can start to set themselves up for the future. But actually that's becoming incredibly difficult for young people to actually even life craft the worlds in which we want. What that means is that income inequality, those with the greatest are able to do more, are able to self-actualize, are able to make their ways through the institutions that are totally broken. And the rest of us are stuck there trying to create the life you want against a backdrop of inflation, broken childcare systems, environmental degradation, and we can't create a world of abundance or a world of our dreams when these things are so broken. What's the solution on this? I think maybe it is getting a little bit clear, working together to identify the ways in which we can first, I think identifying that life crafting is distributed differently by your group and understanding that if you can do it, that isn't the experience of others. Figuring out ways in which we can open up opportunity to life craft. I mean, I'm using this as a stand-in. Are you so sick of me saying life craft? I already am. How do we open up opportunities for others to create the worlds in which they want to live, to create the lives they need? And who's responsible for that? Is it us as individuals? Is it our workplaces? Is it our governments? Is it our communities? The answer is yes to all of that, right? And then how do we understand the way in which life crafting or our ability to create the worlds we want, or the lives we want, the lives we want to live in is probably changing really quickly. And in particular for young people who are at that moment where perhaps for us, life crafting was exciting and fun and maybe difficult, but we saw opportunity. The extent to which they aren't seeing that for themselves. That's why they're booing. That's why they're yelling at the people up there, telling them to get on board and get into the world. And if you have a generation of young people that don't see a future, that don't see the life crafting value, what does that mean for our worlds into the future? Those who are potentially the most innovative, those who are seeing the worlds in different ways, if actually they don't see the opportunity, what I would imagine they're going to do is disconnect. What I'm going to imagine is that they're going to feel despondent. What I'm going to imagine is that the incredible creativity that young people have will be lost, and we will be at a disadvantage of that. So how do we make sure that life crafting, life dreaming, life building is available to all? What do you think? Is this controversial? I'd love to hear from you. Hey, follow me on my social. I'd love to hear from you anywhere on my socials, on LinkedIn. Let me know how this is resonating or how it's hitting for you. And thank you to the researchers who put this idea out there that I think actually is really valuable and is really important. And as I was reading it, I thought, oh, this is something a little different than what I'm saying. I'm saying like we're trying to create the worlds we want to live in, the meta world. But life crafting is like I as an individual am thinking about how to create something specific, something craft my life in these ways, and how your mental load is being used to do that. I might say it's dream building, but I think it's a little something different. So that life crafting concept helps us understand maybe some of the mental load that you're working through. Okay. As per always, thank you for listening to MissPerceived, where you don't need a PhD, but you just get to come hang out with me, and I'll give you all the research insights and all the news concepts, and you can tell me if they resonate. I love you.
We
Have the
are
most wonderful
so
week,
lucky and grateful
mwah.
that this series is being supported by the Melbourne Public Humanities Initiative at the University of Melbourne.